The universe seemed to fold in absolute silence as the Valkirion glided through hyperspace, carrying an enigmatic purpose and an uncertain destiny. The mining ship, one of the most advanced of its class, had a simple mission: to explore the ruins of Eridanes 9, a recently discovered planet emitting unusual energy patterns. However, Chief Scientist Kayla Ven knew something was wrong. The planet's radio signals had suddenly ceased, and the energy patterns shifted unpredictably. Sitting before a panoramic window, she gazed at the starry void, sensing they were approaching something beyond human control. In the lower section of the ship, Zack adjusted his cybernetic arm with precise and impatient movements. His perpetually sharp wit masked the tension he felt about missions in uncharted territories. Exploring a dead planet? Sounds like the kind of brilliant idea that ends in explosions, he muttered, while fine-tuning repair tools. Despite his reluctance, Zack was indispensable to the team, and his ingenuity often turned impossible situations into opportunities for survival. He knew that, with Kayla leading and SARIS commanding the systems, their chances of success were good, at least on paper. Meanwhile, in the ship's core, the android SARIS monitored the planet's energy fluctuations with meticulous silence. Its artificial intelligence, considered almost human in nuance, had already detected something alarming: an anomalous energy wave that seemed to pulse like a dying heart. "Dr. Ven," its calm voice echoed through the intercom. "The planet's core activity suggests an unstable energy structure. Recommendation: proceed with caution." Kayla frowned. "Caution on a dead planet? Are you hiding something from us?" SARIS. The android hesitated, an unusual trait for such advanced machines. Caution is always prudent. When the planet finally came into view, cloaked in golden clouds and strange formations of light, everyone aboard the Valkyria held their breath. The terrain was a mix of alien beauty and looming threat, crystalline towers glowing like beacons against the purple sky, and at the center, a pulsating portal radiating energy patterns that seemed to respond to the ship's presence. "This isn't in the report," Zack said, breaking the silence. Kayla, mesmerized, replied, "Because what's down there wasn't meant to be found." For the first time, she felt the weight of the mystery they were about to face. As the ship landed softly, the portal emitted a wave of energy so intense that it caused the Valkyrion's systems to flicker. Lights flashed, and alarms blared as SARIS quickly conducted an analysis. Temporal disturbance detected. Recommendation: evacuate. But Kayla, too intrigued to retreat, murmured, "Evacuate? We haven't even started." On the horizon, shadows began to form near the towers, as if the planet was waking from a deep slumber. Something or someone seemed to be watching the team, and the portal glowed even brighter, as if it were ready to consume them. As the Valkyrion's system stabilized, the team began descending to the planet. The air on Eridanes 9 felt different, almost electric, vibrating with a frequency Kayla could feel in her bones. The ground, composed of crystals reflecting shimmering lights, seemed alive, reacting to every step they took. Zack, trying to mask his nervousness with sarcasm, commented, "Great. A glowing floor. Totally normal." Kayla ignored the joke, focused on the light patterns emanating from the nearby towers. "This is more than architecture. It's communication," she murmured, almost to herself, as she recorded the data on her scanner. Near the portal, a strange melody began to echo, as if the planet itself were singing. SARIS immediately activated its sensors, projecting holograms into the air. "The source of this frequency is the portal," announced the android. "Pattern consistent with advanced energy structures. Likelihood of non-human origin. 99%. Zack glanced at Kayla. Translation: "We're messing with something we don't understand. Anyone wanna bet how long before this blows up in our faces?" Kayla, mesmerized, walked up to the portal, observing the symbols etched into its surface. "This isn't a threat," she said with unexpected conviction. "It's an invitation." The team cautiously approached, and Kayla noticed inscriptions that seemed to change shape as she examined them. "This isn't just technology," she said, her voice filled with awe. It's biotechnology. The inscriptions are like living circuits. Zack scoffed. So, that's it? We explore a planet only to find an alien machine that's alive. SARIS interrupted with an alert. Movement detected. Coordinates marked at 200 meters. The group froze, their eyes turning toward the horizon. In the golden mist, a humanoid silhouette began to emerge, its body cloaked in a pulsing blue-purple light, similar to the portal. The being, tall and slender, stopped a few meters from the team, its gaze glowing with a piercing amber hue. It raised a hand, and the portal reacted, emitting a new wave of energy that made the ground vibrate. Zack instinctively stepped back, holding his multi-tool like a weapon. "Is this a greeting or a threat?" he asked. Kayla stepped forward, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "I think it's trying to communicate." Before she could say more, a voice echoed in her mind, clear and direct. "You shouldn't be here." Kayla felt as if a whirlwind of emotions and unknown thoughts had invaded her mind. She saw flashes of a destroyed world, beings fleeing into hyperspace, and a portal activated as a last hope. "Who are you?" Kayla asked mentally as the figure approached. "We are the Guardians of Balance, and you, by entering here, have disrupted what you do not understand," the voice responded. Zack, observing the interaction, muttered, "Great. Now we're talking to telepathic aliens. That makes things so much better." The portal began to pulse again, this time erratically. SARIS detected a critical energy surge. "The portal's core is unstable. I recommend immediate retreat." But the alien figure pointed toward the portal, as if asking them to stay. Kayla realized they were at a point of no return. If the portal collapses, it could affect the entire planet. "Maybe even beyond," she said. Zack retorted, frustrated, "And why is that our problem? This place was fine before we got here." Kayla ignored his provocation. "We're connected to this now, whether we like it or not." The alien figure raised both hands, and the portal glowed with a blinding intensity. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to shift, revealing an underground entrance. "It's guiding us somewhere," said Kayla, a mix of curiosity and caution in her voice. Zack hesitated. "Sure, because following a glowing alien underground is always a great idea." Still, he followed the others. As the team descended into the planet's depths, the environment around them seemed to transform. Not just physically, but with a palpable sense that they were entering a space where the laws of reality were no longer fixed. The underground tunnel enveloped them in complete darkness, except for the soft glow emanating from the alien figure ahead. The walls seemed to pulse faintly, displaying intricate patterns that shifted as if responding to the team's presence. "These inscriptions are like a living map," Kayla said, attempting to decipher the patterns with her scanner. Zack, impatient as always, quipped, "Or a giant, get out now" warning. Despite the tension, Kayla was captivated. She could feel that this place held secrets far beyond her scientific understanding. The alien figure suddenly stopped, turning to face the team. With a slow gesture, it indicated a vast chamber ahead. When they entered, the sight left them speechless. At the center of the room, a core of energy floated, spinning slowly as holographic projections of entire galaxies flickered around it. It was as if they were gazing into the heart of the universe. This is impossible," Kayla murmured. Zack, still processing the scene, muttered, "Okay, I'm officially freaked out." SARIS conducted a quick analysis. Structure identified as a multiversal anchoring device. Purpose: to stabilize temporal flows. Kayla cautiously approached the core, observing it intently. When she gently touched the energy field surrounding it, more images flooded her mind, memories of the planet before its fall. She saw the VLYTHR in their glory, an advanced, peaceful civilization that used the portal to connect realities and expand their knowledge. But something went wrong. An external force, possibly another civilization, attacked, triggering the collapse that brought them to the brink of extinction. They used the portal as a last attempt to survive, Kayla explained, her voice heavy with emotion. "That's why they guard it so fiercely." The alien figure stepped closer, and this time, its telepathic voice was clearer. This core maintains not only our world but multiple universes in balance. Your arrival has destabilized it. Kayla felt overwhelmed by the weight of the words. If we don't fix this, what happens? She asked. The collapse will begin here, but it will not end here. You have opened a breach in the flow of time, the VLYTHR responded. Zack, still trying to process the situation, burst out. So, basically, we caused this mess and now we have to fix it? Great. Humanity, always exceeding expectations. As the team debated their next steps, a new alert appeared on SARIS sensors. Hostile presence detected. Multiple life signs approaching. From the far side of the chamber, dark figures began to emerge. They were larger and more imposing than the VLYTHR, clad in black metallic armor that glowed ominously red. Those don't look like friendly guides, Zack said, switching his multi-tool to defense mode. Kayla turned to the VLYTHR, seeking answers. Who are they? The alien replied urgently. Destroyers. They seek the core to control the multiverse. Conflict was inevitable. As the invaders advanced, the VLYTHR figure raised its hands, projecting a barrier of light around the core. Protect the heart, it commanded, its voice resonating as both a plea and an order. Despite his reluctance, Zack joined the fight, using his ingenuity to improvise weapons from whatever he had at hand. Kayla, on the other hand, desperately worked to find a way to stabilize the core. SARIS, I need a plan. How do we stabilize this before everything collapses? The android replied coldly, manual recalibration required. Failure risk. 73%. The battle intensified as Kayla, following SARIS instructions, frantically worked on the core. The invading creatures seemed unstoppable, but the VLYTHR leader sacrificed itself, enveloping in a burst of light that eradicated most of the enemies. He sacrificed himself for us, Kayla said, stunned. Zack, still in the middle of the fight, shouted, focus on what matters. We need to get out of here with this thing working. Finally, Kayla completed the process, and the core began to glow more stably. We did it. For now, she said as the chamber trembled violently. Now we need to get out before this whole place collapses on us. The chamber floor trembled as the core stabilized, but the cracks spreading along the walls signaled that the planet was collapsing. Kayla looked at the remains of the VLYTHR leader, whose luminescent traces had vanished at the moment of its sacrifice. They did everything to protect this, and we almost destroyed it all, she said, her voice heavy with emotion. Zack, catching his breath, replied, Kayla, we can blame ourselves later. Right now, we need to get out of here alive. Or would you rather die along with your discoveries? As the team rushed back through the tunnel, Kayla began to notice something strange. The inscriptions on the walls, once vibrant and full of movement, were now dim or broken. It was as if the planet was literally losing its essence. This isn't just a physical collapse, she murmured, analyzing the patterns with her scanner. SARIS confirmed, stabilizing the core has interrupted the energy flows that sustained the planet's biological structure. This world was designed to function as an extension of the portal. Without it, it is condemning itself. Zack suddenly stopped, pointing to something ahead. What about them? He asked. At the end of the tunnel, a small group of VLYTHR, weakened and unarmed, watched the team with a mix of fear and hope. Kayla immediately approached, ignoring Zack's wary gaze. You need to leave with us. This planet is dying, she said. One of the aliens, friendlier than the previous leader, emitted a low melody that echoed in the tunnel. Kayla's telepathic translation was clear. Without the portal, there is nowhere to go. The dilemma was overwhelming. Kayla knew that the Valkirion didn't have the resources to accommodate new passengers, especially aliens with unknown biological needs. But leaving them to die was unthinkable. We can't just abandon them, she exclaimed, looking at Zack. He, on the other hand, was torn. And what do we do? Save 5 of them and die on the way? That solves nothing. Kayla took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. We'll find a way. If not for all of them, then at least to save as many as we can. SARIS, impassive as always, interrupted. Recommend prioritizing multiverse stabilization. Individual survival is not essential to primary objectives. The android's words, though logical, sparked something in Kayla. These beings sacrificed everything to preserve the balance that now depends on us. I can't just treat them as expendable. Zack shook his head in frustration. And what will that cost us? There's always a price, Kayla, and I'm not willing to pay with our lives. But even as he argued, he began improvising an escape route that could accommodate the alien group. When they reached the surface, the destruction was evident. The crystalline towers were crumbling, and the purple sky had turned into a swirling mass of black clouds. The portal, though still visible, now pulsed irregularly, like a dying star. We have minutes at most, SARIS warned. Kayla looked at the surviving VLYTHR, trying to convey courage. Do you trust me? She asked. In response, the frail alien raised a hand and touched hers, emitting a sound that felt like acceptance and gratitude. It was enough to convince her they couldn't fail. When they reached the Valkirion, the ship was surrounded by the invaders who had pursued the team earlier. Without hesitation, Zack activated the automated defenses, creating a distraction while Kayla and SARIS guided the VLYTHR aboard. Let's make this quick, Zack shouted, covering the rear. The fight to escape wasn't just against the invaders, but also against time. Just as the team managed to lift off, a massive explosion rocked the planet, nearly knocking the ship out of control. The core, it's fully collapsed, SARIS reported. Kayla looked at the control panel, where an alert showed that the breach in the multiversal flow still hadn't been resolved. This isn't over, she murmured, as the planet disappeared behind them. The Valkirion ascended hastily into the atmosphere, but the ship's systems were overwhelmed with failure alerts. We're flying by a thread here, Zack shouted, trying to stabilize the controls. Kayla, seated beside him, kept her eyes fixed on the holographic radar, which blinked with constant warnings. The invaders hadn't given up. Several small ships were pursuing them, firing energy beams that made the Valkyrion's hull shudder. If they hit the main reactor, it's over, warned SARIS, projecting risk calculations onto the screen. Inside the ship, the surviving VLYTHR were gathered in the cargo hold, silent and frightened. Kayla went to them, ignoring the turbulence. We're doing everything we can to get you out of here, she said, trying to offer some hope. The eldest VLYTHR, the only one capable of telepathically communicating with her, responded with an image in her mind. A distant planet with bright structures reminiscent of the towers on Eridanes 9. A new home, Kayla murmured, understanding what they longed for. But the harsh reality was that without stabilizing the multiverse, their future remained uncertain. Meanwhile, Zack was buying time, maneuvering the ship through the debris beginning to orbit the collapsing planet. I swear, if we survive this, I'm never taking another mission to a dead planet, he grumbled, narrowly avoiding an energy explosion. Kayla returned to the cockpit, her mind swirling with questions and frustration. We can't just run and hope the problem disappears. We need to fix this, Zack replied curtly. And how do you suggest we save the multiverse with half a dozen scared aliens and a ship falling apart? Before Kayla could respond, a deafening alarm echoed through the ship. SARIS announced, hostile energy detected, equivalent to a weapon of mass destruction. Outside, one of the enemy ships was preparing a massive shot aimed directly at the Valkirion. That's going to destroy us, Zack shouted in panic. Kayla closed her eyes for a moment, processing their options. SARIS, can we redirect the shot? She asked. The android replied, remote possibility. Using the portal debris as a shield could disperse part of the energy, but the failure risk exceeds 80%. With no other options, Kayla ordered Zack to position the ship strategically near the remaining fragments of the portal. You're crazy, he said, but complied. As the shot was fired, a blinding explosion of light filled the space, and the Valkirion was thrown backward by the shockwave. For a few seconds, everything was silent. Status, Kayla asked, gripping the panel tightly. SARIS responded, critical damage to propulsion system. Survival of the shot. Confirmed. Pursuers. Eliminated. Zack let out a sigh of relief. That was ridiculous. But it worked. Despite the temporary success, the ship was in terrible condition, and resources were rapidly depleting. Without the main engine, we can't jump to hyperspace, Zack said, examining the controls. Kayla looked at the VLYTHR, feeling the weight of her decisions. We have to prioritize stabilizing the multiverse, she said, trying to remain resolute. Zack rolled his eyes. You're still thinking about saving the multiverse? Kayla, we need to save ourselves first. SARIS interrupted. New anomaly detected. Coordinates marked. Possible stabilization point identified. The new coordinates led to a nearby region of space where an unstable gravitational field appeared to contain the remaining fragments of the portal. It was a risky chance, but perhaps their only one. If we can trigger a reaction in the portal's core, we might stabilize the multiversal flow and buy time to find them a new home, Kayla said. Zack, exhausted and cynical, replied, sure, because we've done that before and it was a total success. Even so, he adjusted the controls to follow the plan. The team knew that the next step would define their fate, and possibly the fate of countless other realities. As the Valkirion approached the indicated coordinates, the sight was terrifying. Fragments of the portal floated in an unstable energy field, colliding with one another and generating bursts of light that distorted the space around them. This is a gravitational nightmare, Zack remarked, staring at the panel's readings. SARIS projected a holographic model, highlighting a central structure among the debris, the remnants of the portal's core. Energy source identified. Stabilization possible. But the risk of total destruction exceeds 90%. Kayla observed the projection with a mix of fascination and worry. If we can reactivate the core and channel its energy, we can prevent the multiversal collapse, she explained. Zack replied with a sarcastic tone. And if we fail, we'll turn into cosmic dust before we even notice. Kayla looked at him, resolute. We can't just run away and leave this behind. Not after everything we've seen. Zack sighed, adjusting the controls. You really have a talent for getting into impossible situations. You know that? As the ship maneuvered through the floating fragments, Kayla devised a plan with SARIS to access the core. I'll need to go outside the ship, she said. Her voice steady but with a hint of nerves. Zack immediately protested. No way. You're not going out there with all that instability. That's suicide. Kayla responded, we don't have a choice. I'm the only one who can decipher the core's patterns and reverse the process. SARIS can assist remotely, but someone has to do it manually. Reluctantly, Zack helped Kayla suit up and adjust the controls for the exit module. If you die out there, I'm going to be really pissed, he said, trying to mask his concern with humor. Kayla gave him a faint smile. I'll be back. Promise. As she floated out of the ship, the VLYTHR watched in silence, their glowing eyes fixed on her as if placing all their hope in her bravery. Kayla felt the weight of their gaze but also drew strength from it. This is for them. For all of us. She murmured to Herschel. Reaching the core was a monumental challenge. The gravitational fragments created vortices that threatened to pull her into the void. SARIS, monitoring her movements, provided precise instructions. Lateral movement to avoid field collapse. Suit stabilizer at 20%. Kayla was sweating inside the suit, but her determination never wavered. Finally, she reached the core, a pulsating orb of energy that seemed to breathe. She connected her equipment and began working, deciphering the complex patterns regulating its operation. Almost there, she said as the signals slowly aligned. Inside the Valkirion, Zack struggled to keep the ship stable. We're being pulled into one of the vortices, he shouted as alarms blared throughout the systems. SARIS, with its cold logic, replied, time remaining until total collapse. 2 minutes, Zack groaned. Great, because we can never just have a normal day. Kayla, outside, heard the conversation and sped up her work. I just need a few more seconds, she yelled over the communicator. As she finished, the core glowed brightly, and the field around it began to reorganize. The explosion of energy that followed was both a blessing and a curse. The core stabilized, creating a new, stable portal, but the shockwave sent Kayla hurtling into the void. "Kayla!" Zack shouted, trying to locate her on the sensors. For a moment, the silence was crushing. Then her voice came through the communicator, weak but steady. "I'm here. Just need a lift." Zack let out a sigh of relief, maneuvering the ship to rescue her. As the Valkirion escaped the now stabilized field, Kayla looked at the new portal, feeling a mix of hope and sorrow. "We saved the multiverse," she said, almost to herself. "But there's still so much we don't know." Inside the Valkirion, silence reigned, broken only by the subtle sounds of the ship's systems stabilizing. Kayla, still in her spacesuit, sat in the command room, staring intently at the hologram of the newly formed portal. "It's there, stable but incomplete," she said, almost as if thinking aloud. Zack, sitting beside her, sighed, exhausted. I was hoping for something more rewarding after saving the multiverse. Like a break, or maybe a cocktail." Kayla let out a faint laugh but quickly grew serious again. "This isn't the end, Zack. It's just the beginning." The elder VLYTHR entered the room, followed by the other survivors. He touched Kayla's shoulder, and a new vision appeared in her mind. She saw a universe being reborn, galaxies expanding, and a planet that seemed like a new home for them. But the images were fragmented, confusing. "They believe they have a chance to start over," she said, translating what she had understood. Zack observed the aliens with curiosity. "And where exactly is this new home?" "Because I don't see any practical instructions coming from them." Kayla replied, "They don't know. But the portal, it might be the key to finding it." As Zack worked on adjusting the ship systems, SARIS projected an unexpected alert. "New anomaly detected. Origin, the stabilized portal." Kayla immediately focused on the hologram. The portal was pulsing, emitting energy patterns reminiscent of the previous core but with something different, as if it were trying to communicate. "It's a signal," Kayla said, fascinated. "Someone or something is on the other side." Zack, alarmed, intervened. "Or it's another cosmic trap waiting to destroy us. Let's leave it alone while we're still alive." Kayla, however, couldn't ignore the call. "If we don't investigate, we'll never understand what's really happening. This isn't just about the VLYTHR, Zack. It's about understanding the impact of everything we've done." Zack shook his head, defeated. "You're not going to let this go, are you?" She smiled faintly. "Not a chance." SARIS analyzed the portal's patterns. Probability of continued stabilization, 87%. Safe passage, indeterminate. Kayla looked at the android and said, "Prepare the ship for approach. We're going to find out what's on the other side." As the Valkirion maneuvered toward the portal, the VLYTHR gathered in the observation room, watching silently. Kayla felt the weight of her choices and everything that had happened so far. They had sacrificed so much, lost a home, but still carried hope. "We're connected to something greater now," she thought. Zack, still grumbling, took his place in the cockpit. "If this kills us, I just want you to know I told you so." Kayla smiled. "If this kills us, at least we'll have done something worthwhile." As the ship entered the portal's gravitational field, an intense light enveloped them, followed by a feeling of weightlessness, as if the space around them had disappeared. The ship's radar went silent, and time seemed to stop. Kayla held her breath, waiting for what was to come. Suddenly, the light vanished, and an awe-inspiring vision appeared before them. A previously unknown star system, with vibrant planets and energies that seemed to pulse like living hearts. Is this real?" Zack asked, his voice full of wonder. SARIS confirmed, location unknown. Possible connection to alternate realities. Kayla gazed at the new system with a mix of awe and uncertainty. "We've started something bigger than we imagined," she said. "And now we have to figure out where it's going to take us." The VLYTHR gathered behind her, seemed more alive, their glowing bodies shining in sync with the surrounding energy field. Maybe this is their new home, Kayla murmured. But deep down, she knew there was more to it than that. As the Valkirion navigated the system, the feeling that the real adventure was only beginning took hold of her. The universe had changed, and they were at the center of this transformation.